Hey, what's up? In this video, I'm going to talk to you about Locale 2 suppressed beings. So in Locale 2, everything, of course, is supposed to be raw emotion and flow, and it's pretty abstract, but some people bring human conditioning into Locale 2 and build physical world-like constructs as thought forms, and thought forms can be shared in Locale 2. So other people, new projectors usually, and they're always human, by the way, they find themselves very uncomfortable in Locale 2 when they enter it, and they enter other people's thought forms and reinforce those thought forms just by being in it. Sometimes they expand, and being inside these thought forms imposes physical laws and restrictions upon entities because they feel like they're in the physical world. So that's sometimes a really big problem. Sometimes it's just people trying to have fun, but sometimes it's very restricting. And I often feel the need to liberate certain thought forms if the thought forms are depressing, or if the entity or the being within is unaware that they're in the astral world. If they're unaware in the astral world, then it's definitely depressing compared to what they could be doing if they were outside of their thought form. And then there's always celestial beings trying to govern humanoids or earthly beings, or certain earthly beings like maybe some sort of government official projecting or something, and its intent, its characteristics are carried into the astral world, and they try to govern people there as well, and they create all these physical world constructs too. So it can get kind of hectic. Usually at higher frequencies you don't have problems with these things, but one day I did. So I was in Locale 2, and I was on a fairly high frequency. I was just below a frequency where you can find and interact with pretty much angelic beings. They were high frequency. I don't know why they were unable to, or why they didn't come down and free these people from their little trap that they made. I think there was a really powerful atmosphere thought form, like there was a big old barrier above me where I was, and I couldn't really get past that, and I suspect that angels or the other beings couldn't get past it as well. They couldn't come down because they probably already lowered their frequency quite a bit to get to where they were. But yeah, they were kind of having troubles. It's very hard to explain. This is Locale 2. It's very abstract. So I was at the high frequency. Everything was like really bright and radiant and really nice, and I came across a very large bunker, and this bunker was huge. You don't come across huge physical constructs at this frequency typically. Usually thought forms are like elsewhere, and this thing was like gigantic. It just happened to be that it was the largest thought form that I've ever seen, and it was on a high frequency. And so I go from this brilliant area, it was relatively unbusy, and I went into this thought form, this bunker. And the bunker was very depressing, very dim, and had this damp feeling to it. It was really gross. And I went inside, and I started to assess this thought form because I knew that I had to bring it down. It was very impeding to the other beings within it. And there was like a good 50 or more human beings. All of them were human, and they were pretty much trapped inside. So they were all reinforcing this thought form just by being in it, and it makes it very difficult to bring it down, to free them. There was about 5 authoritative beings, like just human beings, and I don't think they really realized what they were doing. I don't think they were really aware that they were in the astral world. So I can't really blame them, but they were making things hard for me for sure. So the first thing that I did, well, before I get into that, when I entered the bunker, as soon as I entered it, I automatically felt my arms and my legs and even clothes. That's how powerful thought forms are. So I went from just being a fully capable entity, or I shouldn't say entity, it's kind of obscure, but, well, not obscure, it's just you don't know what I mean. Typically when I say entity, I just mean being. A lot of times people will say entity and it means an immaterial being. But anyways, I went from like just a fully capable astral being into this humanoid because I entered this thought form. It resembled the physical world. So I went inside the bunker and I had my clothes and stuff. I'm like, wow, I have clothes. And the first thing that I did was I went into a very busy area and I just started creating havoc. Like I just took off my clothes and I started flying around. Well, it was very difficult to fly under those circumstances. I had to do a bit of work, but I started flying around eventually and just like yelling at people. I was like, yeah, you guys are in the astral world. Take off your clothes, take off your arms if you can and your legs, and just fly around. There were people well, this was a bunker, right? It was super elaborate. There was like a little school, little gym, stuff like that. I was in the gym. There was about 20 people. As the majority of them, or not the majority of them, but the most notorious room, and there was people jumping around on trampolines. So the first thing that I did was I went up around the trampolines and I hovered above the trampolines. And I got some people to hover with me because they couldn't really fly at the moment. They were uncomfortable with the idea. And I was just hovering and I was like, the next time that you jump on this trampoline, don't descend. And this allowed me to get people into flying. I got a bunch of people to do this, and then they got used to the idea that they were flying because I got them up to hover with me. And I practically spent a while teaching people to fly, and then I had to spend quite a while removing really imposing, not imposing, well, I don't know if it's imposing, but impeding physical constructs, like our thought forms, like these electronics and stuff. They really say a lot about, you know, how detailed and how old this thought form is, and they contribute to imposing physical laws because of their detail. And I start with those and just get rid of them because they're programmed to do very specific things and things that we really don't need in the astral world. And they're really easy to sabotage. So I started breaking computers and stuff, and just like, yeah, you just think about breaking them or turning them off and they're done for. With a bit of extent, because this was like, from what I can tell, a year-old thought form. It was like 1 Earth year it's been around. That's what I estimate. But even with all of my years of breaking and freeing people from thought forms and suppressive beings or oppressive beings, then I still really have a little clue of how to quantify time. I might, play a metronome for my physical body, so I can roughly keep track of time. Maybe a metronome that ticks every minute or so. That might work. So I can keep track of physical world time, see what the relation is, but still it'd be really hard, because remember, the physical body feeds information to the astral body. It's how the astral body returns to the physical body when it's uncomfortable, and the same thing happens in reverse. So you get that. It's a win-win situation. But anyways, I was in this bunker and I was on my way to getting people out of the bunker, because I was telling people that the bunker has no purpose, it's very depressing, and they can fly around, and they don't need to listen to anybody, really. There's no authorities around, other than these random people that weren't really authorities, that were trying to oppress. Well, they weren't really trying to, it's just kind of their programming is to oppress people. And That's what they were doing. So they tried to stop me a bit, but they couldn't really, because I'm not new to projecting. I know how to, fly around, evade beings, deal with beings like this, do it all the time. And they weren't really the worst problem. The worst problem was how reinforced the thought form was. It was ridiculous. Because typically, all you have to do is think about these things breaking and think about the entities within them being freed. Usually go inside them and do this. But with this one, it took me a while. Like, I had to go inside, figure out what was going on, and plan everything. So, I went into this recreational area. There's just people sitting down, and they weren't happy with the fact that I was flying around. Some of them were like, "Well, that's something reserved for angels." I'm like, "No, it isn't. Everybody can fly around. Jump up and fly, because that's what you do in the astral world. You're not limited to gravity or the ground or anything like that. There actually wasn't a ground. There wasn't really a perceivable ground where we were, what frequency we were on in Locale 2. The only perceivable ground was the thought form. So I started to dissipate the ground so that they weren't really comfortable with sitting on it, that you just mentally exert this dissipation. And they got up and they started jumping around, trying to fly and stuff. And then I started to go outside a bit and try to get people outside. And what happened was, a lot of them were like, it's not safe outside, because this is a bunker. This is something to keep people from consuming radiation or absorbing radiation. They said it's not safe outside. They were implying that there was radiation, and that is because we were on a high frequency in a very open area. Like, there was nothing other than this bunker, and all you could feel was like the sheer energy of this plane passing through you. Like, it was very radiant. It kind of felt like you were directly exposed to the sun, in a nice way. That's how powerful it was. Like, it's analogical to being out in space and being directly exposed to the radiation of the sun, except it's not going to hurt you. It's good for you. And they were just not used to this feeling. So when they got on this frequency in Locale 2, that is what they manifested, was this bunker to get away from this unusual feeling. But I got all of these beings, every single one of them, to eventually come outside. I started just breaking holes through the wall because I didn't feel like finding the entrance again. It was a very large bunker. But I got them all to come outside, and they were all flying around, stuff like that. And they were pretty happy. Like, as soon as I got them outside and I got them all flying, they were very happy, very pleasant beings. And I don't think there's it goes on. Like, I had to figure out how to make everybody comfortable with going wherever they want in the astral world and raising and lowering their frequency. That's a whole different story. That's actually like, I don't know, 1,000 words in my dream log, or my dream or projection log. And really, I believe that if you make people comfortable with the astral world, then they will want to do it again because it's so pleasant. A lot of people are in the astral world and they simply are unaware that they're in the astral world. All you have to do is say that they are in a different world at the moment. You can say the astral world or out of body or lucid dreaming or something to let them know that they are not limited to their physical body. And sometimes it's appropriate to say lucid dreaming so that they don't freak out. Certain people are not comfortable with the idea that they're in a separate world because they might think that they're dying. It depends on the person, and you just make them aware of where they are and aware that they can fly and that they're not limited to physical world stuff, physical laws, and that they can't possibly be oppressed by beings unless they let them. It's like in the physical world. If you let people oppress you, then you're oppressed. But in the astral world, it's much easier to overcome oppression, because this world is way more freeform, way more dynamic than the physical world. Anyways, that was a story about the largest thought form that I liberated. Again, it was on Locale 2. That's where you're going to find most of them. And that's about it. It's just a very odd experience because of the frequency I was on, and the fact that there was like 50 beings in the thought form, and it was like fully integrated into that frequency without the beings being pushed into a lower frequency. Usually if you're inside the thought forms like that, your frequency lowers because you have all these physical world worries. The stuff reminds you of the physical world, and your frequency lowers, and you no longer can be on that plane. But these beings were on that plane for sure. Like, they were just in this dark area. They were happy. It was really depressing compared to the rest of the plane, but they were pretty happy in the plane. But sorry, they were happy in the bunker, but when I got them out, they were actually like ecstatic. Like, they were in a euphoric state because they can now fly around, and they know that they can interact differently with people, probably more efficiently than they did before, because they don't have their as much as their human conditioning as they had before, and they can just go wherever they want. And a lot of them were asking me about whether or not they can come back to the area, and try to inform them that they can. But a lot of them seem to be like accidental projections. I don't know if I can actually help them get back to this area from the astral world. But hopefully, they'll look it up and see some stuff on Google that will inspire them to continue to try to come back to the astral world. And again, a lot of people accidentally project through their dreams or the lucid dreams, and they will be more aware. They'll be just aware as a typical accidental astral projection. I guess that's just pretty much all of the accidental astral projections are the ones that are from dreams. And you have all this dream image overlay and all this other stuff, and it's very hard to be aware that you're in the astral world when you do it from a dream by accident. Though there are techniques that you can use with your lucid dreams that will help you do this more consciously. You can just shift into this world, and it typically doesn't impose, because remember, I'm going to say this again, the physical body can send information back to the astral body. So your physical body is processing information, so you have all this imagery going by in your brain because it's doing all this work and interpreting these random discharges, and that alone will be fed back to the astral body. Like, you'll feel this image go by, and it will be pretty confusing sometimes. So yeah, astral projecting while you're having an intense dream can be kind of crazy, but it's fun nonetheless. So anyways, that's all I have for this video. See you later.